Okay, well, hello everyone. And we want to thank you all for joining us today. And we're going to dive right in. And this webinar is for grants for small businesses in tech. And this workshop is pretty much to kind of dive into what funding is out there as a new tech startup or small business that is kind of evolving and kind of peaking in their beginning of their process of actually becoming a tech business, in a sense. We don't understand how hard it can be. So I am thrilled to have you all here today, and I hope this session you will find it both informative and valuable. And we're going to dive in to see what type of opportunities you have in the tech world. Okay. And the workshop today is pretty much designed specifically with entrepreneurs in mind. We're going to dive into kind of ways to navigate the grant world because we know it can be complex. So we definitely want to allow this opportunity. If there's any questions, definitely feel free to use the chat, guys, and we'll have somebody at the end of this webinar to kind of dive into those questions and answer any questions or information you may have had during this presentation, or even just any questions you may have off the top of your head. All righty. Well, here's a quick look at what we're going to cover today. And once again, if you have any questions, guys, put your comments in the chat. So we will start off pretty much by introducing some funding opportunities for small tech businesses. And then afterwards, we're going to dive into understanding the different types of grants and the eligibility criteria that are required in some of these opportunities. And then we're also going to go through how can we guide you through how can you guide yourself through this application process and applying, and what are some good tips and best practices to kind of be aware of before diving into this realm of grant writing and grant applications. So definitely, once again, I'm gonna at the end of the session, we're gonna have some Q&A from our experts in-house, kind of just diving in on what information you're gonna need. Once again, any opportunities of networking that you kind of can have to help you either partnership or even just to get in the tech space of understanding what it is that you need to kind of start your grant process. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Sorry, it's a little delay on my side, guys. All righty, so we're going to introduce some funding types, some funding opportunities for small businesses, types of grants, and we're going to start off by kind of getting the general landscape of what small businesses and what kind of opportunities that are out there as a tech business. Let me swing over. Okay, and I'm going to actually pass it on to Taylor. Taylor, thank you. I'm going to swing this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I really appreciate that. So, as Cynthia said, we're going to dive right into the introduction to funding opportunities for small tech businesses and just learn about a little bit more about the type of grants that are available to you. So, let's begin with the general overview of the funding landscape for small tech companies. We know, as Cynthia said, as a tech business, the main thing that you're looking for right now is to secure funding and secure funding from anywhere. And of course, you're looking like, hey, we don't want to give any equity away. We do not want to deal with that headache because that takes away our innovation. Well, these are those opportunities that you want to take advantage of and those different types of grants that you can go and pursue to help you cover research and development costs, to cover development costs, demonstration costs, also costs to just actually get it commercialized and bring it to market. So here goes three different types of grants that you can actually go look at. The first one is going to be government grants. So the typical grants are similarly some of the grants that we're going to be talking about today, but there are thousands of other different types of grant programs that can actually help fund your tech research and development or your commercialization if you're in that stage of just moving forward to commercializing your product. And then you have amazing grants, which are private foundational grants. These are going to be the grants that are specifically for different types of impacts that your organization and business is focusing on. So, what does that mean? Well, if your technology is focused on helping, people actually improve their health outcomes and things like that, those are the foundations that you want to actually focus on and target when you're actually looking for grant funding, because the only way that you can align with those entities and make sure that what you're doing is actually impactful to the communities that they're serving is to ensure that you're in alignment with their mission and their goals. So that's what exactly what private foundational funding is the funding that's for social impact and environmental impact. And then we have this amazing thing called corporate grants. Corporate grants are going to be more of where Google, Walmart, those different type of corporation grants that have those corporations have foundations where in order for them to actually minimize their tax liability, they actually give away millions of dollars in grant funding each year through their foundations. So you definitely want to look out for those grant opportunities. Typically, they're not over $50,000, but they will help you as an entrepreneur and a tech entrepreneur really get off the ground or possibly pay for just those office costs and those pretty much startup costs that you generally do need funding for. So a whole picture is types of grants you can go for is government grants. You can also go for private foundational grants, and you can go for corporate grants. And the good news is there's tons of funding in all of those areas for you to just take advantage of all of the opportunities that you can go for. And most grants are not, you're not going to have to pay back. These are grants, they're not loans. So you want to be careful and super careful with the opportunities requirements and the opportunities description on exactly what that is so that you're ensuring that you're not actually applying to a loan instead of a grant. So these are some great pointers that you really want to take heed to as a tech company, because we hear you guys say all the time, I only see loans. They always say I have to pay it back. Well, yes, those are loans. Those aren't grants. But moving on, we're going to jump into understanding these different types of grants and exactly what you can do with them. Because of course we're like, okay, well, we know about the grants now, but what exactly are they funding? How do they fund them? And how do I know if I'm eligible? So on the government grant side, most government grants are for tech. If they're for small businesses and tech startups, they're going to be for technology development. So the most thing that they're going to focus on is you must develop some sort of innovative technology. And when it comes to that, those are going to be programs similar to the SBIR program, which is the Small Business Innovation Research Grant, or STTR program, which is the Small Business Technology Transfer Research Program. And those two programs are both programs. One of them you can apply directly by yourself as that startup or small business. And then the other one, you apply so that an institution, so a higher educational institution, actually conducts some of the research and development for you. So you guys are working together and applying to that application together. So those are two amazing programs that a lot of tech startups underutilize and do not go and actually seek funding for, because you can get up to 1.7 million over 2 phases that can help you with those research and development costs that can be burdensome. So, of course, we want to know, well, what's all about this private funding? So the private funding is generally for eligible projects. So what does that mean? Eligible projects are generally, as we were stating before, you want to align with that foundation's mission. So if you're not in alignment with that foundation's mission, generally your project is not going to be eligible because they have certain things that they're actually looking for to fund. They don't just fund anything. So you want to make sure that you're in alignment with that foundation so that your project is in alignment. So those are key things you really want to look out for. And now let's talk about some corporate grants. So corporate grants, one thing we've seen tons of 9 to 5 amazing techpreneurs do is they started at their companies developing their technology, utilizing some of their company's grants that they're actually working for, whether it was Google, whether it was Walmart. There's so many different innovative grants, or even Microsoft. that you can actually apply for while you're working your 9 to 5 and actually developing your technology. So these are the great opportunities that you want to take advantage of. And these are going to be those projects that are eligible when you're focusing on those corporate grants, excuse me. When you're focusing on those corporate grants, they're really going to be aimed at what that company really focuses on, whether they're based on marketing, or let's talk about Apple. Apple, they develop new devices and they have amazing software and things like that. Those are going to be their focuses. So if you have different features and tools and different things that you've came up with that are innovative for Apple devices and things like that, those are the different types of grants that you want to target. If those are different types of technology that are there to support other technology, those are the ones that you want to pursue. They are super, one thing I would say is, yes, they're competitive, but they are super lucrative for businesses and people who are still working the 9 to 5 and developing their amazing technology. These are the things that you want to actually take advantage of as soon as possible, because it's open to you and it's open to you as an individual. So these are the things that we want you to pay attention to when saying, am I eligible for this grant? Of course, you're going to be checking, is this eligible to small businesses or tech startups? But then you're also going to check, what type of grant is this? And am I eligible for this type of grant? So we hope that helps. We're going over to the next slide. Okay, so the fun part. So we want to know, navigating grants. Everyone's like, okay, well, how do I get this thing started? Where do I start? I'm a tech entrepreneur and I don't even know where to get started with this. I've sent my pitch deck to this place and sent my pitch deck to this place, and I applied for this grant, but I've had no success. Well, we have a strategic process that we want you to follow because it works. Making sure that you follow this navigation process will really help you ensure that you meet the success of, one, being eligible for opportunities and helping you determine if you're eligible for those opportunities, and two, actually having a process to follow to carry out the research, the proposal writing, and following up with those agencies after you've submitted that grant. So let's talk about it. So this is an easy step-by-step guide we want all of our techpreneurs to follow, because this is something that is super easy for you to retain and super easy for you to do. The first thing is, we want to begin thorough research. So what does that mean? We want to research the opportunities first that are in alignment with where our entity is, what our project is, and the type of technology that we're actually developing. Next up, once we've identified those opportunities, we want to go ahead and focus on the proposal writing. So now we want to focus on the most important part to actually get us funded, is developing that competitive proposal that is going to stand above the next company that could possibly be submitting a similar or the same project as you. So you want to ensure that not only is your proposal very unique, but it also highlights exactly what's innovative about your technology, what's possibly novel about your technology, which also means new, that's not on the market, and your potential competitors. Those are things that you want to, just visualize, as well as make sure that it's in your proposal so that you can ensure that your proposal stands above the next proposal being submitted. Then next up, after we're done with that amazing proposal, you want to go directly over to the budget and ensure that budget makes sense and it aligns directly with the proposal that you've drafted. So your proposal should reflect any research and development costs. And then, of course, because there's certain phases in different grants, or grants may have a particular number, now you have to actually break that cost up to align with how much that grant is actually going to give you. Because of course, we can't apply every bit of cost everywhere. We have to ensure that the grant cost is allocated to the right place at the right time. So budget finalized. Then once we're done with that budget, we want to directly get that thing submitted and make sure that all supporting documents are in there. It has been peer reviewed by internal teams and external teams and submitted to the agency so they can review it and get you funded. After you have submitted, one thing we always recommend is following up. You want to follow up with that agency or that grant maker as much as possible so that you can stay relevant and so that your review possibly gets reviewed as fast as possible because you've been staying up on your application and they see that you're very interested in carrying out the project. So when it comes to navigating the application process, we came up with this easy step process where you can really just go through it, follow research, proposal writing, budgeting, submission, and follow up, and get your application submitted in a timely, orderly fashion so you can ensure your application is successfully reviewed as well as successfully secured. So after you've handled all that, we've got to dive into some of the good stuff where we want to learn a little bit more about, well, even though I have this amazing process, how do I actually know what to do or what things that I should avoid? Well, the next slide has got you covered. So I'm sure you're wondering, what are some of the things that I may be experiencing or some of the things that I could possibly avoid when actually going through that step process? So some things you want to really make sure that you're doing is never, ever, ever ignore any of the guidelines and always, always, always read all of the guidelines. So step one is never, ever leaving the funding opportunity announcement or guidelines unread. So you want to read every bit of those guidelines because you never know. It could be saying you're going to get an extra $1,000 if you fill this out, or it could be saying you're getting priority points if you complete a certain section. So you always want to, really make sure you understand the guidelines, you understand the opportunity, you understand the reporting requirements, you understand your obligation to that grant before applying, and if you're able to meet those obligations. So next up, one thing we really want everyone to do is not draft just a general proposal. Because what happens is those reviewers just throw them in the garbage because it looks like the 1,000 they've seen before. So this is what we were saying about your proposal writing, and we really want you to draft a compelling proposal, and it's unique to what your project is and how innovative it is and why it's innovative. So when it comes to you drafting a proposal, you want to start off by drafting an outline. That outline will help lead you to that full proposal, which will lead you to drafting a compelling proposal because you'll be answering all the questions that you need to really convey what you're trying to convey to that grant reviewer. So ensure that your proposals are detailed, ensure that they are specific to your innovation and your technology, and you want to specifically tell them what's not on the market and what is on the market that may be similar or why your product is better. So those are key things you want to really take heed to and avoid or make sure you're doing when actually preparing your proposal. So the third thing is do not write a poor budget. So just because you wrote an amazing proposal, you have to make sure that the budget reflects that proposal. So one thing that we always recommend is even though we always say the budget step is separate, you want to also at least have an Excel spreadsheet next to you as you're developing your proposal, and also making sure that as you're developing that proposal, sections also include what items you're going to be including in your budget. And it's because that reviewer is going to have possibly both of those documents hand by hand, and they're going to be reviewing your proposal and looking at your budget, and they're going to want to make sure that they connect. If they're not connecting, you know what happens. That is going to be thrown out the window, and we don't want that to happen. We want you funded. So always make sure that your proposal also aligns directly with the budget so that you can always ensure that your proposal meets what it needs. Excellent.
I agree. And I also, I would love to say that the pitfalls are normally what kind of deters a lot of small businesses from stop applying to federal grants because of the fact that, yes, I followed the guidelines, but my proposal was vague, or I didn't add a budget justification. So a lot of people, a lot of businesses, and our experience is there's a lot of misconception of what and how to apply to some of these opportunities. So that's why we say sometimes, the science head can't really, kind of structure the proposal the way it is because they're thinking always so logical and so scientific that you can't break it down. So it's always good to have a team, and majority of the time, based on our experience, there's usually one person in your small business or in your company that is the grant writer, is in charge of writing and kind of conveying what the project is, what the technology is. So all these three pitfalls are what we see as common denominators during the time of when businesses are actually applying to grants. So definitely keep in mind of these three pitfalls because they can hinder you from getting that award. So even if it's just like you followed the guidelines, you submitted a great proposal, but you missed some information in the budget justification that doesn't align with what you put in the proposal. And remember, a lot of the reviewers are just regular individuals that are volunteering their services and their knowledge in that specific field to evaluate your proposal. So they're going to have those questions. And usually, when somebody volunteers, it's a passion for them. So we're speaking to people that are passionate when you're submitting this proposal on whatever category you're submitting it on. So definitely take in mind that the people that are reviewing your proposal are volunteers, and some of them they're really going to look for the common denominators. They're really going to look through that budget justification, and they're really going to assess both the proposal, the budget justification, and the guidelines to see if you aligned with all three of those things, because that's going to guarantee that um, submission for a full proposal, or that's going to guarantee the full grant funds. So definitely take heed to all three, because it's really, I would say this is like the key structure. Always make sure that you're following your guidelines. Always make sure that your proposal is strong, and always make sure that your proposal and your budget justification are aligned, because one kind of hiccup can actually have a real impact on your final submission. Thank you, Taylor.
Excellent. And I wouldn't agree even more because it's literally something that we see every day. It's the reason why we receive so many tech, leads every day, because what happens is they say, the SBA assisted me, or, they were providing technical assistance, and, they kind of just guided me, and it was a little confusing, and the technical assistance was very vague, and they didn't actually review my proposal. They just gave me some guidance and said, make sure I review this and do this. So as Cynthia said, these are the key things that you want to do. And another key tip that we always say is have an outside company review that application, because that's the same thing that a reviewer is technically doing. They are a complete outside, body that reviews your application. And sometimes, like Cynthia said, they are actually volunteers. So just imagine doing all that free work, reviewing 10 applications, and they're all not aligning. You're throwing them all out. So you want to make sure that yours is the one that they don't throw out, and the one that they're like, they follow directions. This is exactly what they're looking for. This is what I see how innovative their technology is. And I see exactly how they can compete in the market. And that's the main thing about federal funding. Federal funding is targeted for you to commercialize your technology. It wants you to, invest in your company to develop that technology and develop it so that you can commercialize it. So these are the things that we always see that we're like, hey, pay attention to. Just make sure you just double check, double review, and have someone else review it. It does help. So next but not least, we're going to dive into exactly what everyone wants to know. Of course, we're like, where's the money? So the first thing is, where do I find these opportunities? So the good part, if you got here just now, this is the good part. And don't worry, if you missed any of this, this is being recorded, and this is going to be sent to all of our attendees so that everyone is informed. So let's dive back into where to find your first grant, because as a tech startup, it's hard. It's hard to find money, and you're worrying about the innovation, the engineering, the development. You may be managing your development team. There's so many other aspects that you're worrying about as the owner that you don't have time to go researching grants. We got you covered. So the first thing we want you to know is there's tons of different ways you can go to find grants. The first way we're going to let you know is we're bringing you directly to a grant. Then at the end, we'll tell you a few different spots where you can find grants completely on your own, completely free. All of these sites that we're going to tell you to go to are free. So don't let someone say you have to, pay for this site to get your grants. No. These sites are federal sites and state sites, so these are free for you to go find the grants for you. So let's dive in. We're going to start talking about our favorite grant. So this is one of our favorite grants because it really helps tech startups and small businesses really get their technology from the ground or from the lab to the market. So we really love to use the American Seed Fund, which is also brought to you by the SBA. And there's over 11 agencies. So this is my favorite part. There's over 11 agencies that participate in the American Seed Fund. So you heard us earlier talking about the SBIR grant and the STTIR grant, sorry, the STTR grant. And those two grants are under the American Seed Fund. So for these 11 agencies, there is actually the SBIR and STTR program for each. So each of the SBIR and STTR programs under those 11 agencies, they do have different types of funding award, funding amounts and different things like that. And they also have different types of different program amounts, or phases as we call them. Sorry about that, guys. So they have different phases. So what types of phases do they have? They have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. We like to say there's a phase 3, but we also like to be honest. Phase 3 is you got to go get some money somewhere else so you can go commercialize it. But guess what? We help you with that so that you can find other federal funding or other state funding available to get yours to market. So let's talk a little bit more about the American Seed Fund. So the American Seed Fund is coordinated by the SBA, which is also known as the Small Business Administration. And as I told you, there is 11 agencies who participate in this program. So through the SBIR and STTR program, those are the two programs that the SBA created, which is also known as the American Seed Fund. They provide non-dilutive funding. So what is non-dilutive for those who don't know? That means no equity. You don't have to pay it back. And these are all grants. So that is the best part. You don't have to pay it back. And these are all grants. Tell me where to go sign up. I know. So these are those great grants that we all love to apply for because depending on what type of project you have. So let's say you're talking about an agriculture technology. Well, that's going to be one of the agencies that you're going to apply under could be the USDA. So let's say that you're talking about weaponry. Well, that could be the DoD. So, and that's the Department of Defense. So there's so many different agencies that fund different types of technology that you want to ensure that you're pairing your technology with the right agency. Because in turn, you can apply to multiple different agencies because your technology may align with multiple. However, the most key thing is making sure it aligns with the first technology. Excellent. So we're going to dive more into it because we want to know where is the money in this program. Boom. So we talked a little bit about the participating agencies. So I just want to go over them briefly, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more about the phases and how those phases work. So the American Seed Fund, as we told you, also known as the SBIR and STTR, these programs actually, these are the 11 agencies. So it's going to be the USDA, the DOC, the DOD, the DOE. Some people are like, the DOE, yes, the DOE, the Department of Education as well, which is ED. Yes, they give money as well. And these are just small businesses and nonprofits. We're talking about this program is strictly for startups and small businesses. So not only is it for you guys, it's also for your nonprofit if you have one on the side. So the ED, HHS, so Health and Human Services. Then you have DOT, Department of Transportation, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and NASA, and the NSF. So one of our favorites is the NSF because we always love them because whatever technology you have, they have so many different topic areas. You can still align with the NSF. So definitely take a peek into the NSF. They allow you to submit project pitches. And once you submit that project pitch, you get invited to submit a full proposal. They have a much faster process. That's why we love the NSF and we always promote the NSF, because it's a much faster turnaround for you as the tech entrepreneur or you as the small business than any other of the other agencies, because you do have to submit a full proposal and wait for that to be reviewed for the other agencies versus the NSF. You can submit a project pitch. They say, hey, submit us a full application, and the review process is a little faster. So definitely take a peek into it. So we just wanted to get you into all these agencies that fund it. So all of these agencies actually have different missions. So you want to make sure that your technology is aligning with their mission, not just aligning with, hey, yeah, the agriculture, yeah, we have the agriculture technology, but your technology may be weaponry. It may not be really align with ag tech, even though it's used on the farm. So, let's you really want to align it with the proper agency and what their missions are. So moving on. Oh, sorry.
Briefly, before we move on to the next slide, I want to just, once again, these are 11 agencies that support small businesses, because we get a lot of conversation of and a lot of question around, well, I don't, as a small business, I don't see funding. I don't see, I have a tech business, I have a startup. I'm looking to do something in energy. Like Taylor said, there's tons of different places you can go to seek those funding. And it's just really, you can find funding for small businesses. As you can see, there's 11 agencies here, and this is for government. Now, if you go down to a state level, you'll have some more opportunities in that realm too. But it's just the fact that, the government here goes 11 agencies, and NSF has the same kind of like landscape where you could dive into different kind of agencies the same way you would here. So it's a kind of, you have you have more options than a lot of people even think as a small business to get that government funding. And as a tech startup, this is all the areas that some of the funding can give you just money to just innovate. Some of the grants can give you money to for research, to get the team you need, to even just start to see if this can even become something that can be commercialized, like Taylor said earlier. So there's tons of opportunities as a small business owner. It's just, yes, it's a lot of work because grants, free money is not easy. But if you have that drive, and it's really, and once again, key thing here is innovation, innovation, innovation. If it's not innovative, I'm going to be honest with you, do not waste your time, because this is not for something that everybody is doing. This is for the US. This is the American Seed Fund. So this is for America. They want us to be great. They want us to innovate. They want us to continue pushing the boundaries of innovation. And this is where these 11 agencies come together and combine as one to work together to apply and give government fundings to small businesses and nonprofits. So even as a nonprofit, if you have a venture, a technology, something that's going to help the environment, and you want to do it under the name of a nonprofit, by all means, here's the same, 11 agencies that you can seek those opportunities. So just to be aware, there is opportunities for small businesses in tech, and it's just, you have to get your plan on paper, right? Get the plan on paper. And that's what everybody's issue is too. As a small business, they come to us with great innovations, great things. And unfortunately, it's just 2 to 3 people working together, and there's only so much you can do. But these opportunities, they're for the start of greatness. So definitely use it to your benefit. Use it to help your team get to where it needs to get that funding, because sometimes you need that little extra funding to get the project off the ground. And these 11 opportunities and agencies are here to kind of seek that and help you do that. So don't take your time after this webinar and really just read through it and see how it can benefit your organization and your small business. Thank you, Taylor.
Absolutely. And literally, as you said that, I was like, yeah, let me bring in these phases so they kind of understand like how this even works because we're getting close to time and I want to make sure that we get everything in. And one thing that we want to share with everyone is if you would check your email, we have provided free consultations, 1 hour consultations to all of you for specifically one-on-ones to help you actually identify grants and help you start that whole process. So please don't hesitate to click that link and schedule that time with us because we know this time was short. But back to business. So there are 3 phases of the SBIR and STTR program. So the phase 1 is going to be proof of concept. Hey, you're developing that proof of concept. What that means for you may be on a different stage. You may be in the research stage. You may be in the development stage. You may be in the prototyping stage. That may be different for you at your phase 1. But at that stage, depending on which agency you're applying to, you can get between 50K or 275K. And for tech development, that's going to be phase 2. That's when you want to focus on, hey, I'm developing this technology. And then moving on to phase 3, commercialization. We're commercializing it. It's going to market. We are actually going to bring this to market and be in possibly the stock market and sell this to government or other entities to actually make a profit. So those are going to be the things that you want to look at when you're talking about phases and when you're also referring to, hey, well, how do I know if my tech is good for to start at phase 1? Well, whatever your phase 1 is at that time is what you want to actually pay attention to. So next up, I have one last one for you. Q&A. What